question him yourself.
I don't need to.
Did you ever question the officers who arrived on the scene other than Officer Lawrence?
I've heard things from them. I did not question them exactly, but with their report of the accident, it has to be true according to the police policy that we follow.
It has to be true according to policy. So policies are never broken, and police officers can never be wrong. Is this correct?
I would like to say that, but there has been there's certain cases where things don't always work out, but for the most part.
So you just simply allow your officers, you base your judgment by putting trust into them and listening to whatever word they have to say.
I believe all of society puts their trust into police officers.
But you specifically, Chief Rodriguez, please answer the question. Are you impartial when it comes to your police officers and feel biased towards them?
Not biased without good reason.
So yes.
I am biased, but I have good reason and good support to back it up.
Chief, did you ever question Kim after the incident?
No.
So you questioned your officer, who you say that you have biased faith towards, but you never questioned the actual incident, the victim of the circumstance.
I did not need to with the police report. They did.
Why didn't you question Kim?
The job had already been done. I did not want to put her through more.
Why didn't Officer Lawrence or any of the other officers read Kim her Miranda rights?
Officer Lawrence was a security guard at the time, not an officer.
But I want to point something out, Chief Rodriguez.
Yes.
This is something the defense said earlier even. Whenever Officer Lawrence was in the store, he said it multiple times that she was trying to physically escort Kim out. Yet then she took it upon herself to
Objection,
arrest.
counsel is testifying
Testifying,
to the fact.
simply pointing out the facts so that the witness can answer a question, Your Honor.
All out.
Officer Lawrence arrested Kim, took it upon herself to arrest Kim, not escort her out. And isn't it police procedure, you just stated, is always followed? Isn't it police procedure that whenever a citizen is arrested, they are read their Miranda rights?
By a police officer and not
So
a security
it's okay
guard.
for a security guard. If I were to arrest you right now, Officer Lawrence, or I'm sorry, Chief Rodriguez, I could arrest you and not have to read you your rights?
You're not a police officer.
It's funny how that works. Tell me, do you often arrest citizens without reading them their rights?
No.
No. But you did this in Kim's instance.
I did not. Are you accusing me of arresting her?
No, I'm accusing you and your department of not reading her rights after she was arrested. Because even despite the fact, whether or not Officer Lawrence, as you claim, was acting as a police officer as a security guard, your officers then did arrest her. Is this correct?
That is true.
Yet none of your officers read her Miranda rights, correct?
If there was a crime going on and it was stopping them or the person in the situation from committing that crime, the Miranda rights might have become an issue that did not come to the front of their minds
So
during
it's
that
okay to
incident.
violate rights so long as the police officers are be able to work as freely as they want. There's certain instances that you're saying it's justifiable to suppress a citizen's rights.
Not suppress their rights, but to protect others.
Why did you feel it necessary to walk Kim across the street to the courthouse in shackles?
And shackles is just in handcuffs. That's what we would do for most.
So you would normally walk teenage girls across the street in shackles so they could be humiliated in front of the public?
No, but if they have committed a crime and they are arrested, they are walked with handcuffs.
Shackles as well, across her feet, dragging across the ground?
This is an exaggeration, but
it's
yes,
not. That's what shackles are, aren't they?
they are a form of handcuffs, yes,
On the feet, that drag across the ground, correct?
yes.
Is it true that 3 years ago, the police department had a rise in incidents in which citizens made claims about police brutality?
Yes, and to that we made classes to prevent.
Is it true that the mayor asked you to make these classes so that you could improve police-community relations?
Yes, and so we did, and yes, Lawrence has taken all 3 classes.
Sorry to ask you that question.
I was just,
Do you believe that these training programs are successful at helping officers better resolve conflicts with citizens?
without a doubt.
So would you not believe then that Officer Lawrence should take these training programs?
The question agrees.
And make sure the witness finish answering the question since it was asked.
Could you say it one more time?
Do you believe then, since the training programs are effective, that it would be beneficial for Officer Lawrence to take these training programs for further training?
Officer Lawrence has taken all 3 classes and the additional one.
No
Thank you.
further questions, Your Honor.
Two questions. Would you say that Internal Affairs would investigate all complaints into abuse of power?
Yes,
So the two complaints against Officer Lawrence, I assume were investigated, correct?
They were?
Okay. No disciplinary action was taken,
No.
correct?
You're only allowed 2 questions.
Your Honor, before the plaintiff delivers our closing remarks, we just like a few minutes, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Your Honor, if you don't mind, the plaintiff will give our closing remarks now.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court, defense, plaintiff, Your Honor. And today, we see a citizen, a young girl who's caught in an unfortunate series of events. And because of the police brutality perpetuated upon her, because of commitments and trust within of the police department, she was caught and oppressed because her as a citizen's rights were suppressed so that friendships within the police department could continue. Kim Brooks was simply minding her own business, and she was working as, and she was acting as a citizen within the store. There's no way she could have known the rules of the store to her. Yet Officer Lawrence and the manager and the store employee all did know the rules available to them and what needed to be done and the actions that needed to take place so that an instance like this never occurred. They failed to do this, and all 3 of them, the manager not upholding her employee's responsibility, the employee, the cashier, not upholding her responsibility and allowing him to go back to the aisle, and Officer Lawrence himself for not knowing whether or not the police officer or the security guard, and swapping stories as to whether it was escorting out or arresting. They all acted aggressively, and towards Kim because she was caught in the wrong situation. In fact, specifically, I want to point out to the jury and Your Honor that the doors were locked in this instance. And so even if my client, even if Kim wanted to leave that store, there was no way she could have done so. And so whenever Officer Lawrence had then used physical force against her and arrested her, despite whether or not she was acting as a security guard or a police officer, the Miranda rights were never read. And in an arrest, as you know, Your Honor, this must be done if police procedure is to be followed. Then what happened, Your Honor, is the fellow police department officers showed up, and instead of listening to my client Kim and her side of the story, they never questioned her, but they didn't fail to question their own officer. They simply took his word for what happened as truth and fact, and they used this against her. And instead of wanting another highlight in the police department's failure against citizens, instead of wanting the mayor to have another incident in which is brought before the public, they decided that they would use overwhelming force and inflict emotional distress upon this young girl to shut her up. Because by doing so, overwhelming her with this police power, they could keep her quiet and out of the papers and hopefully have a court like today. Your Honor, I'm going to prove today that justice will prevail and that police are not above the law, even though certain members of it think that they are. And for that reason, Your Honor, that we are asking for financial compensation and for further training for Officer Lawrence. Now, financial compensation is not simply because we're looking to get paid, Your Honor. My client, Kim Brooks, was out serious financial gains because of this incident. The plane ticket she lost, the school binder, the groceries that she was intending to purchase, the medical bills, the prescriptions, and who knows how long for psychiatric evaluation and care from Dr. Taylor. This is all financial burden that's going to be placed on her and her family as a result of the police department's failure to handle the situation. We're asking for further training for Officer Lawrence because the police chief herself admitted that the training is beneficial to all officers who perform it. And Officer Lawrence, who has never acted out before, acted out in this one instance because she, as she said herself, was upset due to the long circumstances and the working situation. And because of this, she acted violently and abnormally. And that's why training would simply allow her to continue to learn how to suppress these emotions. We're not looking to punish anyone today, Your Honor. We're simply seeking justice for our client and the betterment and improvement of this entire police department. Thank you.
Defendants, your final statements.
Your Honor, in the case today, we've seen that plaintiff was resisting. Whether or not there was an arrest or detainment, as security guards are allowed to do under the law, they can detain someone if they believe that a crime has been or is being done and committed at the exact time. So because of the fact that there was a crime being done, that she believed at the time there was a crime, it is obvious to us that the police, Officer Lawrence, acted under probable cause. We can also see that the police department has reviewed Lawrence. The police department has done this. It's not like there hasn't been a case study. This has been already done. So why press it forward? And the fact that these classes have already been taken, it's obvious that it is not needed anymore. She is ranked extremely well in these classes. Had not there been a resist of arrest, there would be no issue here. But we can see that the plaintiff was resisting. We heard multiple times that Officer Lawrence asked her to stop, asked her to wait. And if she hadn't have been resisting, there would have been no issue. If we can't trust our police departments, then what do we have to trust in? This is the judicial system. This is the courts. This is justice. If we can't trust that, then what do we trust? So it is for these reasons that we are asking that all charges and all complaints be stricken against Officer Lawrence. Thank you.
I'll take a few minutes to review the evidence of today's case, and I'll come back with a decision.
All rise. All rise.
May be seated.
Counsel stay standing for delivery of a verdict.
After reviewing the facts of today's case, as we've seen that young Kim has been battered and assaulted, it was not refuted that the officer herself was admitted to being upset and had been acting either guard or officer. It doesn't deny the fact that officers that also come along did not question her and did not read her rights. Therefore, the police force does need extra training so they know in any situation to follow the law and they're not also above the law. Furthermore, even though Kim had herself fought back, she was first assaulted by an upset officer that should not have acted the way they had. Due to all of this, in the light of this situation, prosecution will receive $1,000 or the 100,000 in payment